So we're going to start with number 10.
Number 10.
Wow. We're really getting high-tech.
Wow.
Yeah, we're high-tech today.
Special effects.
All right. Dean, let's start with your number 10.
Well, my number 10, I saw at the New York Film Festival this year. It's the only documentary in my top 10 list, and I think it's a historically important documentary because it actually did change history for at least 3 people here, and it's Paradise Lost 3, Purgatory by Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky. An amazing overview. Even if you haven't seen the first Paradise Lost entries, 1 and 2, you could go in and watch Paradise Lost 3 and still get the story. Which it's amazing that first of all that the movie can condense the first 2 films into 7-minute sequence at the beginning of the film that doesn't bore even the people that have watched their first 2 films and followed this case. Following the West Memphis 3 that were kids when they were convicted for murdering 3 smaller children in a southern state. And this movie is completely infuriating, particularly in its final moments, in which the 3 kids are 3 people are exonerated for this, but they have to by some strange ruling of law, they have to actually admit that they were guilty before they can actually be released from jail. I can remember there's been no movie of this past year that infuriated me so as Paradise Lost 3, to a point where I actually screamed out, like at the screening at the New York Film Festival. I was like, I was just so pissed off at the people.
Now that premieres on HBO on Thursday night, so everyone out there will have a chance to see it if you get HBO.
It's brilliant. It's a brilliant movie.
Good pick. Jerry, you're number 10.
Okay, my number 10 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2. And I put this on here because I wanted to represent the whole series, because I don't think it's gotten in that sense the justice it deserves at the end of the year. But I figured, they did a good job all the way through, and it's one of those rare things where the series actually got better and better with each film, but I just think it needs to be rewarded for they did a really good job bringing it to the screen, and the last one ends on such a high note and everything. And the performances are good. I mean, this gave every great British actor alive a job, the series, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful conclusion. But like I said, I'm talking about the whole series, which definitely has to rank as one of the great series. Cinematic series that we've seen, and I just think it just needs to be put on there.
Do you think it'll get Oscar love?
I think it'll get Oscar love in the technical category.
Yeah.
I don't see this being like the Lord of the Rings getting the director and the best picture nominations. I would be really surprised. Now it might if they're doing this 10 picture thing or whatever, it might sneak in there. But I would be very surprised.
Well, for you to recognize it for not only its own accomplishments, but as the role it plays in the entire series is kind of a summing up.
Yeah.
Where does it rank for you in the entire series?
I still think the third one is the best one. I still think that's because that's the first time someone has come in and said that we don't have to be this loyal to the source material, because it really is Chris Columbus's greatest flaw is he's so loyal, and you can't blame him because no one wants to really take a chance and break any rules here because you have a rabid worldwide following. But I think this one's good because everything. I mean, it's very you have previous movies. Some of them are nothing more than moving the plot forward, and here everything is the payoff, and the payoff has to be extraordinary, and it is. I mean, the payoff is monumental. It does. I think this is definitely, for me, probably this one and the first part of this one are my favorites since the third one.
Okay. So Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 is your number 10. Dean's number 10 is Paradise Lost 3. My number 10 choice is Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Drive was on the spot for a long time, and then I went back and I saw Drive again. I saw Mission Impossible again. And just Mission Impossible was just one of the most giddy experiences I had at the movies last year. I think it's the best action film of the year. And Tom Cruise, and a lot of it is credited to Tom Cruise. I call it his kind of can-do heroics. I mean, the fact that you know it is him in that building segment where he's climbing the 130-story building a mile and a half up in the air, that does something to you. And it does what a Mission Impossible movie should do. It leaves your mouth open. I mean, you're just agape at what he accomplishes in this movie. And the movie is so immaculately and creatively and vividly directed. Just the staging of the scenes are just pristine, and they just kind of elevate you. So it's the best kind of action movie that I've seen in a long time. So that has to be number 10.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it is the best action film of the year without a doubt. But it's actually my favorite Mission Impossible film of all, because I'm just not a big fan of the series. I can't say I liked any of them really. I could take or leave them. But this one, and maybe it is because I saw it in IMAX, but I just thought it was the most enjoyable of the four, without a doubt. For me,
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the idea behind the series, which is what Tom Cruise had to bring in different directors each time and see what they can bring out of it.
Right.
But since De Palma, I think that Brad Bird is the one that's brought out the best of Mission Impossible.
Oh, without a doubt.
And that was an unexpected pleasure for me, and I'm sure to everyone else, because he's never tackled a live action before.
Right.
But this shows that he's got the chops for filmmaking, period, no matter what form. Okay, Dean, are you like are you the one breathing heavily? Usually that's my job.
I don't think so.
Not me.
Maybe.
You need to charge $1.99 a minute for that.
Yeah, really,
right.
man, really.
We're on to our next pick.
Number 9.
Jerry, what's your number 9?
Oh, you want to go? You want to go with me? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going with Dean. I thought we were doing this sort of like, but I guess Dean is busy with the phone sex line. Okay, my number 9 is The Guard, with Brendan Gleeson and Don Cheadle, and I just thought, I had never been to a movie where people stayed after the credits because everyone was curious what happened to the main character at the end. You don't really see that at the art house movie theater we go to. And I thought it was pretty incredible, but it was another bang-up performance from Brendan Gleeson. This was directed by John Michael McDonough, who I believe is he the brother of the director of In Bruges? Is that what I'm led to believe?
I'm not sure.
That sounds right, actually.
And this is probably a nice refreshing spin on you could say the buddy movie with him as this very unorthodox Irish policeman, borderline racist, who has to team up with Don Cheadle's FBI agent to find out what's going on with this international drug smuggling ring. And there is also great performances always from Mark Strong, and it's just a great film. And it's something about Brendan Gleeson, regardless of what he's in, even bad films, he's just such a pleasure to watch. But I just think this is a film that really showcased his talents front and center, and it's just great film. And there are 20 other films I could put on here, but I had to put this one on here because I don't think a lot of people saw it. So
now this was a Sundance, wasn't that the first time people?
Yeah, I think Sundance was the first place.
And that's gearing up again. So I'm always anxious to see what movies this time next year are going to come from Sundance that we're talking about.
Right.
But I'm ashamed to say The Guard I've missed thus far, but I have to see it because you've been raving about it, and everyone I've heard of has been raving.
Right. No, it's a good film. It's a good film. Like I said, there are 20 other films I could put on here, but I just it's very hard there. So.
It didn't make my top 25, but it's definitely in my of note and kind of a terrific take on a genre, sort of the kind of a fish out of the water. What's interesting about it is the fish out of the water genre, which I consider The Guard to be sort of like an interesting take on Beverly Hills Cop in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is the fish out of water is actually the supporting character, which is played by Don Cheadle quite well. And but you've got that's how they were inventive with it. Is the lead is actually somebody who's in his particular world and knows all about it. And Gleason's terrific in it. It's got a really great script, and it's a very worthy movie. People need.
So that's now
check it
available for people to purchase or rent, right?
I think so.
Okay. All right, here is my number 9 pick. Okay, my number 9 pick is Beginners. Christopher Plummer, who's getting a lot of Oscar buzz for his performance in the film opposite Ewan McGregor. This is my favorite relationship of the year in movies between their father and son.
Mm-hmm.
There's genuine love and affection between them. There's respect, and you see the son watching his father's journey in the latter part of his life and kind of internalizing it and allowing himself to determine what his journey will be inspired by that. It's a beautiful, gorgeous movie, and it's so kind of delicate and tender and sensitively done by Mike Mills, I think, the writer-director.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's one of the most lovely movies of this year. There's another film on my list that I think is equally as lovely. But this is a definite kind of sweet, poetic love song, this movie.
Right, no, it is.
It is. The correct word for this movie is lovely. And it's actually surprisingly well directed, like inventively directed. I wasn't expecting the visual touches that Mike Mills brings to the movie. I was expecting a more just a more talky movie than it was, and I was pleasantly surprised by it.
And also, when you're dealing with something as kind of delicate and as this movie is, when you do those stylistic touches, I mean, it can come off as too cute. It can kind of weigh down the nature of the film, but I mean, it brings out just the charm of it and the emotion of it. Every choice that he makes as a director. So go see it. It's available now. I saw it on demand, so you should too, because I said so. Anyway, okay, Dean, you're number 9.
My number 9 was possibly my biggest surprise of the year. I kind of went into the movie at the theaters, dreading it, and it was way past its time. It was a huge hit, and I was like, okay, well, I've got to see it because it's a massive hit. It seems to be touching a lot of people in some ways. So, but I walked into it dreading it, but. I found that Paul Feig's Bridesmaids was so, well, I mean, just frankly, it was just funny from beginning to end. I mean, like, it's very rare for me to go into comedies these days, and I was kind of lumping it in with The Hangover and so forth. I thought it was like going to be a girls' kind of hangover kind of thing. And it wasn't really about that. It was about relationships between women, and I think that there's a definite dearth of movies out there about women talking to each other, relating to each other without men as their main focal point. I thought this was an interesting movie about female relationships. But moreover, I just thought it was funny. I thought Kristen Wiig was hilarious throughout it all. And then you have Melissa McCarthy, who's just amazing in it, in the supporting role. And then all the other women in it, Maya Rudolph and so forth, are also terrific all the way through. it does have a vomit scene in the movie, a pretty big vomit scene. But you know, if you're going to do a vomit scene, you got to do it like this. You know, vomit scenes are like one of my pet peeves. I'm just tired of seeing people vomiting on screen. But this had like the king vomit scene of all time, to the point where it had a woman vomiting on another woman's hair, which is the biggest taboo. So,
it's a Stand By Me of female ensemble vomit scenes.
Yes, and but it was just funny. That was the thing about it. It was funny. It was funny all the way through, and from the very beginning scene to the very last scene. About the only thing I can say negative about it is that you know, I didn't like how they repeated the Wilson Phillips song twice, you know, at the end of the movie. But other than that, you know, I thought that it was a kind of a perfect comedy, and maybe my favorite popcorn movie, quote unquote, of the year. So Bridesmaids would be number 9 for me.
Okay. So, Dean, your choice is Bridesmaids for number 9. Jerry, your choice is The Guard for number 9. We're mixing it up each time we go around, so I'll reveal my number 8 right now. But first, let's introduce my number 8 this way.
Number 8.
What the hell is that woman screaming at the end of that?
Number 8.
You know what I tried to find? I tried to find, you know, how you used to listen to, I don't know if you guys did, but the Casey Kasem American Top 40. I tried to find, like, them singing the numbers like that.
Oh, that would be great.
But I couldn't find it anywhere, so this is the closest I could get to it. All right, my number 8 pick is George Harrison, Living in the Material World. This is Martin Scorsese's 5-hour documentary on the life of George Harrison. It aired on HBO. And it's one of 2 films on my list that I consider transcendent experiences. And what it does particularly well, which is crucial in music documentaries, and very few do this, is it defines the man and his journey and how his art comes out of that journey, how the 2 find harmony together. So you truly get a sense of where this art comes from. And George Harrison's journey is one defined by spirituality and kind of a feeling of oneness with the world around him as expressed through his music. And Scorsese just captures that feeling just so gorgeously. And it has a lot of the Beatles stuff in it in the first half, and it's done so kind of fresh. It's almost like you haven't seen that story before. But the second half is just revelatory. So go pick it up. I don't think it's available on DVD or Blu-ray yet. It might be, but I'm sure it will be sometime soon. But if you pick up HBO, it's definitely worth seeing if you haven't yet.
No, it's a wonderful documentary. Probably of the few documentaries I watched last year, probably one of the best. But not only that, I mean, if you didn't know anything about George Harrison, it's just an awesome primer. But it's also just very inspirational, very uplifting, and just incredibly inspirational of what you get out of it. I just thought his whole life story was something to really reckon with and walk away with, like, some guiding principles of how to live a better life, actually. If you want to know the God's honest truth, that's what I got out of it. I was very moved by it, more so than I ever thought I would be. So I just thought it was very, especially the second half, I guess the second night it was on, really very powerful.
Yeah. I have to agree. I mean, like, I put it number 13 on my list, which you know, eventually I'll in the next couple of days I'll be putting my whole list on, which comes up to about 30 movies on filmicability.blogspot.com. But yeah, George Harrison just missed making the top 10. But that doesn't mean I don't love it. I thought that it was it's all those things that you guys said about it and more. You know, I had an unusual experience in that I was able to watch it in the theater at the New York Film Festival, and hearing the music was recalibrated for the film, and hearing it on the speakers in a theater was just mind blowing. My one complaint with the movie might be that it's a little birth to death sort of thing, like something that I don't normally like in documentaries or in biopics, and I do find that it's kind of. I do find that the second half of it, I like how it deals with the spirituality aspect of Harrison's life, but I think that it pays a little bit too much mind to some things like the traveling Wilburys and so forth and so on. But that doesn't mean that I do find the movie very transcendent and beautiful. It made me very happy to watch it. It was 4 hours that just went by like 5 minutes. And it was incredibly fresh, even though it's a story that we all know, generally. And I actually thought that it was more personal, a much more personal film for Martin Scorsese to make than Hugo was, because I feel like Scorsese looks at Harrison as being the same kind of artist that he is, which. Scorsese is definitely interested in matters of spirituality, and they are reflected in many of his movies over the course of his career. And
music.
So this was.
Music
too. Yeah.
This is a perfect vehicle for him. Okay.
Yeah.
Jerry, what is your number 8?
My number 8 is Takashi Miike's 13 Assassins. Which is probably the first film I saw last year that I actually really enjoyed. We watched it on demand, I guess in February or March, and I was completely blown away by it. I love samurai films, I love Yakuza films, and I love most of the films Miike makes outside of the horror genre more than the horror films, obviously. But this was just one of the most violent things I had seen in a while. It's a group of assassins come together, reading the IMDb description, but come together for a suicide mission against an evil lord. And it is bloody. It is just absolutely nonstop violence once the assault begins. And it is also incredibly exhilarating and cathartic. And I had to put that on here because it is just fucking brilliantly beautiful. And it's just got, great cast, a lot of people that you've seen in other recent Japanese films, a lot of great character actors, and it's just incredible. I actually got it, I think, for a gift on Blu-ray for a friend of mine for Christmas and his birthday, but it's just really wonderful, wonderful film. We talk about Mission Impossible is definitely the best big budget action spectacle in probably many years. Because it's really funny. A lot of people, I think us included on the show, that the Transformers movie was like this great action movie, because there really just wasn't a lot out there. That says you how then Mission Impossible comes along and that puts that to rest. But 13 Assassins is just wonderful in every way. It's just an incredibly well-made film. Actually, I think one of Miike's probably most accomplished films, maybe even more so than Audition or even some of his finer Yakuza films. But this was just incredible.
Okay, I have it here, and I plan to watch it.
Okay.
I've seen the first 10 minutes. But I will watch the rest of it.
Okay.
And I liked what I saw.
It's
but
really
you're right.
movie.
Even from that very opening scene, it's it's violent. It's bloody.
It is.
Yeah. Dino, what is your number 8?
My number 8 comes from Scotland's Lynn Ramsey, and it's her first sort of American movie. It's called We Need to Talk About Kevin. Stars Tilda Swinton as a hapless mother who has a new mother who has absolutely no connection with her new child, to the point where it eventually becomes rather horrifying that she even has this child in her care, and the character of the child, played by I forgot the actor's name who plays Kevin, but he's played in different ages in his life by a few different actors. But We Need to Talk About Kevin is possibly the most horrifying movie over the past maybe 2 decades, I would think. and I would think that also that there are a lot of people that won't be able to take this movie, particularly if they're parents, because it sort of realizes for them their deepest horrors about parenthood. It's beautifully directed, very very quiet movie, even though it seems like violence is its main center. But it's a very quietly directed film, and Tilda Swinton is just magnificent in it, to the point where she kind of owns the movie, really.
Yeah.
I mean, even though everybody's good in it, but she Urza Miller is the guy who plays Kevin in the teen years. I'm now remembering, and he's very good in it too. But it's really Tilda Swinton's movie all the way, and Lynn Ramsey's, who co-wrote the script based on the novel. Co-wrote the script with Rory Kinnear, and it's an excellent script.
It's got a very special tone to it that is tricky, and it's not something you've seen before tonally applied to a story like this. Yeah, it is a tricky movie. It's not going to be for everybody, but I thought it was a brave movie. I don't think that I've ever seen a movie about parents not being able to connect with their children like this. Jerry, have you seen it yet?
No, it hasn't opened here yet, so I haven't seen it. How does it compare? Now, is this one of these films you guys are talking about, like reinvents the horror genre? Would you call it that?
Yes. I'm gonna talk about it a little later.
Okay. No, I know. I knew you were. As soon as I realized that it was on both of your lists. Oh, obviously I knew it was on yours, Jamie, because I have ESP. But no. But it's interesting because a couple of years ago there was an interesting movie, Joshua, that came out.
Right.
And then there's Vera Farmiga has gotten typecast as playing the mother of troubled children. I mean, between that, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and what was the one with the little Russian orphan girl? Orphan, thank you. So you always think of those, but this sounds like it's really taken a different tack. And I don't expect something different from Lynn Ramsey. I mean, Morbin Caller was just one of those like awesome films, as was Ratcatcher. I think wasn't Ratcatcher hers too?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I expect something just so... let me ask you, it makes you uncomfortable watching the film?
It does. It's unsettling. I mean, it's not...
That's the word,
It's not jump up, boo, scary.
Right.
It's consistently unsettling, and there's an argument going back and forth about, well, can you consider it a horror movie? Because people are so programmed to think of what a horror movie is. This movie deals with subject matter as horrifying as any.
Right.
And I think in dealing with the subject matter and in dealing with it in a way that isn't necessarily straight drama. I mean, this is a movie with a definite style.
Right.
That kind of reflects, I don't know, something you might see from Polanski.
Mm-hmm.
It has a deep connection to Rosemary's Baby in a lot of ways, I think. But so that's about as close as we've come.
Okay, so our number 8 choices, Jerry, you had 13 Assassins. I had George Harrison, Living in the Material World, and Dean had We Need to Talk About Kevin. So, Jerry, what is your number 7? Reveal it after we play this.
Number 7.
Yeah! Wow. Was that somebody like punching somebody?
Yeah, it sounds
I think so.
Is this something like punching like Larry Bud Melman? Okay. Okay, mine is the first of 2 of these infamous double choices, but I just you can't talk about Hugo without you got to bring in the artist. I think. I mean, and for that matter, you could bring in Midnight in Paris if you really wanted to go stretch it, and that's a good film. So that's not on my list, but I do like that film a lot. But it's just not enough room to make it. But Hugo and the artist hark back to these eras that I'm really it's really interesting. We were watching Mission Impossible and my mom was like, how do you even sell a movie like The Artist, where kids are so used today to sound and everything, the effects? How do you even sell The Artist? Or Hugo, for that matter. And obviously we've seen that Hugo was a tough sell. But I just think both of them, in their own ways, are nostalgic. But with that, and and in good ways. I'll start with Hugo. I just think Hugo, besides being just an homage to the silent era and everything, it's just a great story. I thought the two leads were wonderful. I thought the supporting characters were great. I actually think it's really nice that people are giving Sacha Baron Cohen work outside of his own caricatures that he plays, because he is very good in these supporting performances. He was very good here. And I thought the scene where they're watching themselves on screen and how young they were and how, and they're just so moving. And I thought the guy who plays Arnold Rothstein and was in A Serious Man, Michael Stahlberg, who plays the film historian, he was wonderful. And I thought I just thought the film, it was just beautiful. And it's the first movie I saw in 3D since Avatar that I actually liked, to be quite honest with you. I didn't even really, the 3D for what it has, it works and everything, but it's just really nice. And it is a personal film for Scorsese. His most personal, I don't know, but it's obviously, you get the film preservation, you get all this, this is everything that matters to him, I think. So I do take it as a personal film. The Artist, I didn't think I'd like The Artist. I liked it more than I did. But like we were talking yesterday, everyone who walked out of the previous screening had a big smile on their face. And when you go see it, you'll probably have a smile on your face, even regardless of what's on your mind. It does serve this purpose of what movies, I think, basic thing at their heart should just get you to not think about your troubles for that 90 minutes or 2 hours. And The Artist definitely does that. And it's one of these, beginners. The dog is the star of the movie. There's no denying that. It's nice. It's very nice. I also just like even the small performances like that Malcolm McDowell, John Goodman. I thought James Cromwell was good, but the two leads are incredible. And I do think, what is the lead actor's name?
Jean Dujardin.
He is going to be nominated, and he is going to be the one to beat, I think.
Okay.
It is an absolutely star-making performance.
Yeah, yeah. But I thought they're both really good, really great films that take us somewhere we haven't been for a long time, and that's another good thing about movies. They can just take you away someplace, and both of these films do that.
The Artist is the one that I haven't seen. I have caught up on a couple. I haven't been able to see The Artist or Shame yet.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two biggies from 2011. But I saw Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy and Martha Marcy May Marlene yesterday, and I with a Cook the Thief the Wife and her lover Chaser. But Hugo is my number 7 too.
Oh wow.
Okay. And
of course, you know that Hugo is on my list as the most overrated movie of the year.
Yes,
so we won't beat that horse again.
That's exactly why I chose it. But it's, I love Hugo, and it's one that, just as Avatar was conceived, it's a movie that 3D is specifically utilized in service to, because it's really reflecting the magic trick that is movies, and that is one of the main themes running through the movie. And the fact that it's geared towards more family-friendly audiences is encouraging, because if maybe kids go see this, or teenagers or pre-teen go see this, maybe they'll be moved in a way by the power of movies as Scorsese was when he was that age. And maybe we can look forward to a new generation. I much prefer kids to be inspired by a movie like Hugo than a movie like Transformers, which seems to be what they are inspired by nowadays.
Well, the only problem with let me just restate for people who haven't heard me talk about this, and I'll keep it short. But the only problem with me and Hugo, well, the main problems are for me that I don't find the lead character very interesting. I feel that the first half of the movie is one type of movie, and then the second half of it that deals with George Millet is another type of movie. I feel that that's kind of a bait and switch for the audience. Okay, audience, we're going to give you a whole bunch of chase scenes and all the things that you think you need for a family film, but then we're going to give you a history lesson on movies. And I think that turns the movie into some sort of schizophrenic kind of monster in some ways. So I appreciate that I got through the movie because of its look, because of Dante Ferretti's terrific art direction and the wise use of 3D. I did see it in 3D, and it was quite good in 3D. But I don't think that it's necessary to watch the movie. I'd be interested to watch it in 2D and see if, and I'd be interested to hear if people who eventually go and watch it in 2D still have the same feelings about it later on. But I find I kind of lump Hugo in with Avatar in that way. You know, I feel like the 3D has kind of overtaken people's view of like what the movie really is. So.
I don't love it because it's 3D, but
I mean, it's very little to do with it. Yeah.
I mean, I just think the 3D is. I understand the use of 3D. I mean, it has an intention and a purpose. Unlike most of these movies, which are just use it to raise the grosses.
Yeah.
And Robert Richardson knows how you feel about Hugo, Dean. He listened into one of our shows with his wife, and he heard all about it.
Well,
that was the show he chose to watch.
That's great. That's wonderful.
It's definitely not his fault. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, try to cover your ass now. I mean.
No. I mean, technically, the movie is beyond reproach. But just on the script level, I think the movie's main villain for it not being a very successful movie is really the scriptwriter John Logan. But the people behind the camera were doing their damnedest to make it work. And yeah.
So Dean, what is your number 7? It's not Hugo.
My number 7 is probably the most unusual movie on any top 10 list that I've seen over the past few months, and it's a movie called General Orders Number 9 by Robert Persons, who is a Georgia filmmaker who's been working on this movie for 10 years. It hit the festival circuit starting in 2009, but it only in this year is he actually launching sort of like a Crispin Glover type campaign to take it to different cities and host showings of the movie to prospective viewers. General Orders Number 9 is possibly the most original movie that I've seen this year because I really right now I'm having a difficult time describing it. It's basically a filmed poem, and I think the director would agree with that statement. It's a filmed poem. It's a movie about the passage of time and the past as it's and the sort of obfuscation of the past by the present. It's unlike anything you've ever seen. People compare it to Terrence Malick's works, but even it's like Terrence Malick's works with no plot whatsoever in it. It's just all observations about.
Well, if that doesn't
passage.
sound irresistible, what does?
Yeah, really.
Well,
I mean,
it's like Terrence Malick with less plot.
It actually is the most mesmerizing visual experience that you might have watching movies this year. It's completely, utterly mesmerizing. Lulls you into sort of a kind of a contemplative state that I cannot compare General Orders Number 9 to any other movie that I've ever seen. And I really feel privileged to be talking about it on the show because I think it's a movie that a lot of people need to see and check out and search out for. They're really going to have to search for it. But General Orders Number 9 is just, I wish that I was more articulate in saying exactly what it is, but it's just something that you have to experience for yourself. And but it is a visual experience. Unlike anything I've seen.
Okay. I've seen it on a couple of lists, so hopefully it'll get out there and get noticed. So your number 7 is General Orders Number 9. Jerry is Hugo and the Artist, and mine is Hugo. Now we're up to this
number 6.
And my number 6 is Midnight in Paris. The thing that I think really distinguishes it, apart from the visuals, and a lot of Woody Allen's movies, I mean, he's made a lot of movies, so they run the gamut, but a lot of them are more visually accomplished than I think people generally give them credit for. And he works with a lot of good cinematographers, and this time he's working with Darius Kunji on, he did Seven and Evita and a few really great-looking movies. This movie has this heavenly, soft, golden glow to it. The performers are great. Owen Wilson is the perfect Woody Allen stand-in, effortless. But the thing that I like most about it is it has a theme that I think is very worthy of exploration, and that's the idea that we're always nostalgic for different eras, whether they be eras that we lived during our childhood or eras even before that we never existed in. We always romanticize them. And what we lose in the translation is what makes the time that we're living in so special. It keeps us from living in the now. I think that's what I loved about the movie, that it dealt with that in a very creative, heartfelt, but very funny way. So that's why I like Midnight in Paris. It was a great joy. It was one of the joyful experiences I had watching movies this past year.
Great, and I agree with you 100%. That is real. I think that is the bottom line. If you really want to, because it's every time they go back, and then the people want to go back to this time before that, and you're absolutely right. That's really what it's about. And like I said, if there's more room, I'd definitely put that on the list. It's probably my favorite Woody Allen film since Deconstructing Harry. To be honest with you, but I thought it was wonderful. I thought everyone's performances were very good in that, and it's just well done, very well done.
And it's a theme that isn't plowed into you, and Woody Allen can do that. I mean, it's a tendency to do that, especially in like some of his more somber dramas. But But this just manifests itself so organically from the material. It's just light and just fulfilling. Dean, what is your number? What are we up to? 6?
Well, I want to say something about Midnight in Paris. One of the interesting things about it is that I think it's the Woody Allen movie that doesn't take place in New York that fully appreciates its setting. There's nothing. I mean, I remember the first few minutes of the movie is just shots of scenes, Paris streets, and that's the thing I remember most about it. I definitely like Midnight in Paris. It's one of his best movies in a long time. It didn't make my top 25. It's definitely a movie of note, and I was glad to. I think the cast is terrific, and it looks good. And yes, I agree with the whole assessment of its theme as well, which is interesting. Midnight in Paris and General Orders Number 9 actually share something in common, which is that central theme. That are we just looking back at the past and romanticizing it, or General Orders Number 9 fits into this sort of nostalgia thing that's going on with Hugo and the artist and Midnight in Paris and so forth.
It is a very specific trend just in this past year, really, because I posted something on Facebook that a lot of people responded to. I said the current state of the world and the economy, is it more reflected in the streak of nihilistic movies that we've been seeing lately, or the streak of stupid movies that people are actually paying money to go see in droves, or the nostalgic movies? And I think it's more than any of those the nostalgic movies, because the first and second options we see every year. But not so much the specific nostalgic trend that's going on.
That's a new thing, and I would think that's the controlling thing of this year for some reason.
Okay, you're number 17.
Well,
six.
This would be
number 6.
Right.
Number 6.
Sorry.
Number 6 for me would be the artist. Just to expound on some things that have already been said, I just thought that the artist is just sort of a light little truffle of a movie that's quite wonderful in its ability to take you back to a certain time and place. That's quite different from, even though it's only 80 years ago, it's quite different from, what we're experiencing now. I think that Jean Dujardin's performance is absolutely astonishing. and it's funny. It's great to look at. The dog is terrific in it. You're right. It's one of the best supporting performances of the year. And I was surprised. I saw it again yesterday for the second time. I saw it at the New York Film Festival for the first time. And seeing it yesterday, I found it remarkable. I was actually moved more by it than I was the first time I watched it. I found it slightly more moving on a non-comedy emotional basis, Mm-hmm. But basically, it just makes me feel wonderful, and I'm glad that it's the front runner for the Best Picture Oscar now, even though it's really strange, I don't know what it's doing at the box. I looked at some of the box office returns for it, but it only looks like it's in less than 200 theaters. So it's only.
I think they're waiting until the Oscar nominations actually to capitalize on those.
It's only made about $4 million so far, so it's very unusual, like this film. And,
My Week with Marilyn and Tinker Tailor are doing well, but those have opened up wider. But I think The Artist you'll see open wider towards the end of the month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, definitely The Artist, number 6 for me, no question about it.
So the number 6 for you is The Artist. Number 6 for me is Midnight in Paris. Jerry, what is yours?
Mine will be Steven Spielberg's War Horse.
Really?
Yes. And I've already spoken about this in the show, and I don't want to take up too much time talking about it. But, you're watching this film, and the thing that keeps going through my mind is, like, all the men who made these sacrifices for this war and in the Second World War and just all the wars to come. But I'm just watching the carnage and how just, there's no word. Just carnage is the only word. I know people said, it's like a low-rent, a cheaper version of Saving Private Ryan, or it's just not as good as Saving Private Ryan. And I find it embarrassing that we're using that as the benchmark for a great war movie or just a great movie. I like Saving Private Ryan, but I don't use it as a benchmark for much of anything. I use it as a reminder that we have to remind Tom Hanks that he did not fight in the Second World War. Is probably the main thing I think of lately when I think of Saving Private Ryan. What I liked about War Horse is this is another film that harks back to another kind of movie we do not see anymore. It really does hark back to the old Lassie movies or the old National Velvet. Also the Black Stallion, for that matter. Maybe almost as beautiful as the Black Stallion, almost, because it's very hard to compete with Khalib's cinematography in that film. But this is just a very moving story, just incredibly moving. I think the scene where the horse goes through no man's land is just extraordinary. But it's really, I think it's one of Spielberg's best films, besides this in Munich, definitely in the last decade, without a doubt.
I need to see it.
I still haven't seen it as well.
War Horse is your number 6. So that brings us to number 5. And Dina, we'll start with you. What is your number?
Number 5.
These get funnier and funnier as they go along. Starting with number 5, I think these are the most extraordinary movies of the year, no question about it, and I think they're all masterpieces. Number 5 is Bennett Miller's Moneyball for me. A film that transforms a book that is quite, from what I've read about it, it seems quite filled with a lot of, statistics and so forth. But it transforms this story of the Oakland A's manager trying to reinvent how they build baseball teams. It transforms it into just something extraordinary, primarily because of the two performances of the two leads in it. Brad Pitt, of course, in the lead as the manager, and then Jonah Hill, who really surprises with one of the best supporting performances of the year as Pitt's main advisor as to how to rebuild the team in a smarter way. This is baseball will always, whatever people say about football and everything, baseball will always be the American game. And what's interesting about this movie is that it doesn't fall into, it's a sports movie, yes, but it doesn't fall into those tropes of like having something exciting. It does have a couple of exciting moments in it that are on the field action, but those aren't placed in the movie where we think they should be placed. And really the most exciting action happens in the back rooms, just on with Pitt on the telephone to some other baseball manager or owner trying to trade players that some people think are not worth bothering with. But with the things that Jonah Hill, the equation that Jonah Hill's character comes up with, it really does make a stronger. This kind of very unusual equation does make for a stronger team. I found the movie incredibly moving, and I think Brad Pitt's performance is absolutely the best acting of the year by a lead actor. No question about it. So number 5, Moneyball. Bennett Miller, by the way, great director. Really,
he's a great director, and he did a terrific job on it, on a project that couldn't have been easy because he was like a replacement for Soderbergh. And he was the one that had to kind of salvage this together, and he gives it a very unique stamp, and the focus always on performances and pacing and kind of a swift feel to it. I'll be talking about it a little bit later. Jerry, what is your number 5?
I just want to say I agree with everything that Dean said. I mean, it didn't make my top 10, not because if I only went to the movies in September, I would have been content.
Yeah,
I'll say that right now. And a lot of those movies did not make it. But if I only went to the movies in September, I would have said this is the best year, without a doubt. My number 5, though, is very difficult because I had to put some together because they're all linked by a common theme. And I'm going to read them to you. Jane Eyre, Hannah, and the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. In another year, Jane Eyre would be my number 1 film in a heartbeat. It is. I did not know. I've said, and I'm not going to take it long on these because we've talked about each of these movies on the show. But they are each these. At first, you would think vulnerable women, whether it's Elizabeth Slander, Hannah, or Jane Eyre, and they're all tough, hard as nails. You don't want to fuck with these girls. You really don't want to mess with them. They're very strong, very resilient, and but each film I think is sort of. I mean, the weakest of the 3 is the Fincher film, ironically. Just because I still need to watch that film again to really see outside of her performance and the soundtrack and some. I mean, it's a good film. I don't know if it's a great film. But her performance is so revolutionary because I didn't know who this girl was before The Social Network, and it's just a mesmerizing performance. But Jane Eyre, everyone's good in that. That's Michael Fassbender's movie this year. That and I think X-Men First Class. A Dangerous Method, I really don't know what to think about except that, Viggo Mortensen really saves the movie. It's the comic relief, if you will. And Shane, I don't know. And Hannah's just brilliant. The guy who made Pride and Prejudice, Atonement, made that. That's incredible. Yeah. That's just.
It is incredible, and you've chosen 3 movies. It tells you what a good year it's been for actresses.
Yeah.
3 movies, female driven, could not be more different.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. So Jane Eyre, Hannah, and the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. You put. Your females, you chose to put in a threesome. That's great.
Yes, I did. I decided to put a threesome. You're absolutely right.
You fucking pervert.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So here's my number 5. It's melodrama, and like We Need to Talk About Kevin, it's another movie about a very strange and strained mother-child relationship. And I just marvel at Kate Winslet in this movie because she's a self-starter. She wants to find success for her and her daughter as a single mother. But at every turn, nearly everyone in her life is using her, trying to crumble her. But Kate Winslet finds a way to play it so that you're still sensitive and empathetic with the character, but Kate Winslet is never insufferable, and she's never a martyr in the movie either. It's an incredibly difficult thing to achieve with this character. The period detail, just the juicy nature of the performances. But when you see it, I mean, just keep in mind this is melodrama, and some of it is very, very heightened, as it should be in this genre. But it still feels a bit more muted than Far From Heaven, at least stylistically. But that's a movie that I would definitely recommend. It's available on DVD and Blu-ray now. That's my number 5.
That's
okay.
Still something I need to see. It's definitely shooting to the top of the list. I really need to watch it. It's something I haven't made time for.
Jerry.
Jerry
duty. You're number 4. Hang on. Oh, I forgot. I got to play the number 4. Number 4.
Yeah, come on. You got to come on, dude.
Okay, where is it? Okay, here it goes.
Number 4.
Okay. My number 4. I can't compete with that. But my number 4 is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy.
Ooh.
And this is just incredible. All right, if Harry Potter's giving everyone all the great British actors, this one too. And I hope they'll make the others into films as well. Same cast, same director, and everything. This is just incredible. This is Gary Oldman's movie. His performance. He really. We've talked about it a lot, but I think Brad Pitt's wonderful in Moneyball. And I think George Clooney is wonderful in The Descendants. I mean, these are both great performers. But Gary Oldman's been just slaving along here.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been just, for the most part, he does hit him out of the park. Of course he has misses. Everyone has misses. I mean, look at Pitt and Clooney for that matter. Everyone has. But he takes a role that everyone has pretty much thought that Alec Guinness was the be-all, end-all. And until watching this, there's no reason to think not. And he's just mesmerizing as George Smiley, and I just think the movie, not just, all right, if he doesn't get an Oscar, okay, I understand that, it's not the end of the world, it really isn't the end of the world, but the movie is so well done, and they talk about this thing that there are not enough movies for adults. There are movies for adults, and you just got to go look for them, and this is definitely one of them, like with the girl with the dragon tattoo, but this is not the movie, like, you don't fall asleep during this movie, you don't leave the room during this movie, you got to pay attention, it requires you to watch it, and to watch it very closely. But it's mesmerizingly good. It's fantastic.
Saw this yesterday, and the main thought that I had about it involved the SAG Awards, because the SAGs give out ensembles.
Yeah.
Outstanding performance by cast. This year their nominees are Artist, Bridesmaids, Descendants, The Help, and Midnight in Paris. And what a shame. It's a major oversight not to nominate Tinker Tailor. This is quite a cast.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of the great ensembles of the year, without a doubt, for me.
Yeah, I agree, yeah.
The craft of the movie is impeccable. The way it's shot, the staging of it, the editing of it. I mean, Thomas Alfredson is a beautiful filmmaker. The only, and I like the movie very, very much. The only problem I had with it is it felt old-fashioned to me. And when we're talking about movies like The Artist and Midnight in Paris and that kind of thing that actually deal with the past, those, for some reason, don't feel old-fashioned. They feel kind of new. But, I mean, that's a slight complaint. It is a great, intelligent, well-performed, and just vividly crafted movie.
Right.
That is in theaters now. So
wide release. It is as wide as I think it's going to get. Let's put it like that.
And it's doing well.
Yeah, it is.
Let's hope for that. The Devil Inside and Tinker Tailor. Those are your choices this week.
That's weird. The Devil. I guess people were starved. I guess that's what it was. I don't. Yeah. That was just caught me off guard.
And speaking of SAG, Wednesday night we have the SAG Awards, rather.
Okay.
Because the Golden Globes and SAG, they go together, don't they? Speaking of SAG, Wednesday night we have a nominee for Best Actor, Damian Bichir, He's nominated for A Better Life, and he's also nominated for an Indie Spirit Award, too, for that same movie, so he'll be on the show Wednesday. Dean, you're number 4.
My number 4 comes from Iran. It's by Asghar Farhadi, and it's called A Separation. The original title is Separation of Seamen from Bahir. It is hands down my favorite screenplay of the year. I just saw it yesterday, and it actually sort of kept me up all night thinking about it in some ways, because it was just it's a steamroller of a movie in a lot of ways. And it doesn't go where you think it's going to go. You think, okay, it's called A Separation, and it's going to be sort of like this Iranian version of Kramer versus Kramer or something like that. And it's not that. It goes someplace completely different. The movie does start with the separation of the two lead characters who've been married and have a teenage daughter. And the husband is dealing with his own father, who's aged and infirmed with Alzheimer's. And in dealing, he has to deal with both the separation of the dissolution of his marriage, and at the same time taking care of his daughter and taking care of his father. And in taking care of his father, he has to hire a woman to come in and help him while he's away at work during the day.
Because his father has Alzheimer's, right?
Yes, and this hiring of this woman opens up a tremendous can of worms that eventually, in the last hour of the movie, it becomes almost like a thriller. Because you're trying to search for answers to assuage all of the characters in the movie, and the answers don't come very easily. And what's interesting about it is it all leads up to the separation. You know, even though it goes away from the story of the separation of the two married spouses, it all leads up to what effect all of this drama has on the teenage daughter, and helps her make her decision regarding who she's going to stay with in this separation. It's an extraordinary movie, and I'm telling you, the screenplay is just superb. It just won Best Screenplay from the National Society of Film Critics, which I think is the best film critics, association out there. They're always the last group to ring in on the previous year's best work, but they always seem to get it totally right. And they picked The Separation as both the best foreign film and the best screenplay of the year. I totally agree with the screenplay thing. Even though I love the Moneyball screenplay, A Separation is just unbelievable, and it is really something else.
Jerry, have you seen A Separation?
No, it has not opened here, so I have not seen it.
I saw a little bit of it. I'm going to watch all of it soon. But, I mean, you can bet that's the foreign picture.
Yeah, I would think that's the one to beat, without a doubt.
Yeah, but,
I think so.
They often screw that up, so.
Yeah,
foreign films and documentaries, but forget about it.
Yeah.
When it comes to the Academy. Okay, A Separation is your number 4. Jerry, your number 4 is Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. My number 4 is Moneyball. Just as Dean already mentioned, it's a great, fun, intelligent, moving, human movie, and a very different kind of sports movie, because if you hear what this movie's about, you're likely to think, oh, God, that sounds boring. Baseball and statistics. But by kind of creating these characters which are so vivid and enjoyable just to be in their company. I mean, I'm not a baseball fan, and I'm not a fan of math, but I love this movie. And I do think Brad Pitt gives the movie star performance of the year, as I've said many times before, but also want to bring up Philip Seymour Hoffman, who I think gives an unsung supporting performance. He's only in it for a little bit, but this is a lesson on how crucial a supporting actor can be no matter what their amount of screen time, because he plays the kind of defeated baseball coach, and he doesn't have to do anything. That character feels so lived in that you can read that character just from one glance of Philip Seymour Hoffman in this movie. He doesn't have to open up his mouth. You know who that guy is when you first see him.
It's true, and also, like, just down to, like, the supporting performances of, like, for instance, all of those old guys sitting around the table trying to figure out who they're going to get for the next season or whatever. You know, those guys. All of those guys are incredible.
It's got a very conversational feel. I mean, you could almost see parts of this being done by an Altman or someone.
Right.
But it's also a great sports movie, not like other sports movies are where you're waiting for the big game and will they hit a homer. It's not that kind of thing. But the movie is filled with underdogs. I mean, each character in his own way is a kind of underdog. And Jonah Hill is himself an underdog, taken under Brad Pitt's wing. And I think part of what makes him work so well in this movie is the fact that he does seem out of his element. Because we're used to seeing him in all these crazy adolescent comedies. He is out of his element in Moneyball, so is his character. But in playing this character, he makes us understand that he's capable of this kind of movie from here on out. For the remainder of his career, he's got great talent and range that we haven't given him credit for, I don't think.
I agree.
So that's my number 4.
Totally, yeah.
Okay, let me bring up my switchboard again. See, I'm trying to write down your choices, each one of you guys' choices, and work the switchboard at the same time. So now we're up to our top 3.
Number 3.
Jerry, what is your number 3?
Drive. It had to show up
Drive.
on here somewhere. I mean, and I have to put it high up there. It's just I don't have much more to say. I mean, the soundtrack now is my favorite part of the movie, having listened to it a lot. But it's just like from beginning to end, incredible experience. Very visceral, and it is one of these like divisive movies. You either love it or you hate it, or you haven't seen it, which is the case I think with a lot of people that haven't seen it. But it doesn't surprise me that this didn't do as well as people thought. But it is my favorite Ryan Gosling performance of the year, although I do like Crazy Stupid Love that he's very good in that. And he's even good in The Eyes of March. I just don't think The Eyes of March, when all is said and done, isn't really much of a movie. But here, he's incredible. Carey Mulligan's good, but I think this is Albert Brooks all the way. Playing, you speak of Jonah Hill playing against type, Albert Brooks is also playing against type. Albert Brooks, I don't think we've ever seen Albert Brooks like this, if I'm not, unless I'm mistaken. It's quite a menacing performance. It's just incredible. The use of music is good, and people I guess thought it was going to be like the Fast and Furious. I mean, okay, whatever. But it's just quite a movie.
I love the movie too, and this would be my number 11.
I hear you. I understand that. Yeah.
I love the movie's look.
Yeah.
I mean, the colors in the movie, I mean, it's very colorful without being garish. And I'd be interested to know how they came upon this particular style. Of all the ways that you can do this film, it's a very specific style and feel for the film, and that gives it a unique quality that the story probably doesn't. And that's what makes it a special experience, I think. And you have to. It's kind of an experience. You either get on its wavelength or you don't.
I mean, it's one or the other. And like we just watched Valhalla Rising. The director also made that. We watched that last week on IFC, and I did not know this because I DVR'd it off IFC a couple of weeks ago. I did not realize IFC had commercials.
Yeah.
That was really off-putting. I had no idea. I hadn't watched IFC in a long time. And I like his other movie Bronson, and he did the Pusher trilogy, but I think Drive is by far his most accomplished film yet. So I'm very curious to see what else he has in the pipeline, just because he's
Logan's
getting
Run.
better and better, So
that's
well,
he's doing Logan's Run next.
I have to rate in on this. I'm going to rain on the parade here by saying that I thought Drive was also another one of the most overrated movies of the year.
I would agree with you, Dean. It's just no one went out and saw it. I mean, I would agree with you that it's over. Oh, but it's just no one went out and really saw it. It's sort of like it had a little blip and then it died.
Well, I mean, the people who did see it are overrating it. I feel like it's a movie that I've seen before.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a rehash of a Walter Hill movie called The Driver.
Kind of, and I like The Driver. Don't get me wrong. I like it kind of. But I think Ryan O'Neal had more dialogue than much more dialogue than Ryan Gosling in the film.
Well,
I guess that's what I'm saying about it, Dean. It's a movie, it's a story, it's a setting that you've seen before. What makes it unique is what they do with that stylistically.
Well, I don't think that it's stylistically unique in any way. I mean, I think that it steals a lot of stuff from other movies from the early '80s.
Yeah.
I
no one's
find
denying that.
Well, hold on a second. Let me say some things about the movie that I don't like. Very specifically, I have a problem with its lead character being, is he a race car driver? Is he a stunt driver? Or is he a getaway driver? What is he? He's not any one of these things. These are all very different kinds of driving. So I think the movie is a little confused on that point. I think the love story is never convincing. I think I think it's very strange that that Gosling's character could be living in the same building with Carey Mulligan, and yet he's just now noticing her or whatever. It just none of it ever rings true. I do have to say though, Albert Brooks terrific in it. No question about it.
And I will say I agree with everything you just said about it, and it's still one of my favorite movies of the year because the style is the substance.
I thought it was very clear though that he says to her, "I'm a driver for the movies."
Well,
I thought that was very clear.
He says that because he can't say he's a race car driver because he's not yet, and he can't say that he's a getaway driver because he doesn't want to tell her that. So I mean, those are two interesting observations from you, Dean. Just your observations about films are very interesting.
But he also says that because it's true.
Yeah,
he is a stunt driver.
Yeah,
I mean, if it involves a car.
I mean, he's
an expert at it.
He's the thinking person speed racer. I mean,
I just didn't find the movie exciting in any way except for Albert Brooks' performance.
Okay.
Okay.
So where are we at? Okay, so Dean, your choice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That was it was 3 a separation, or have we not gotten to your 3 yet?
4. We haven't gotten to my 3 yet. So.
Okay, but Drive was your number 3, Jerry.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm on top of it now. Dean, what is your number 3?
Number 3 for me is a movie that I again saw yesterday for the first time on the big screen, and it also just recently won Best Picture by the National Society of Film Critics, who also chose its lead actress as Best Actress. It's Lars von Trier's Melancholia, with Kirsten Dunst as in the first part of the movie, she's a bride celebrating her recent marriage, even though she's obviously under the spell of a deep depression. The second part of the movie deals with her family dealing with her in the throes of a deep depression while sort of charting the progress of a planet that's coming closer and closer to Earth and actually threatens the existence of Earth. The planet's name is Melancholia, and I think that this is Lars von Trier's most accessible movie, surprisingly, even though it's not a happy movie. The audience that I saw it with yesterday was just absolutely stunned by its final moments. When you're sitting in a movie and it ends and everybody is just sitting there they can't even move. There's not a sound in the place, That's what Melancholia does for you. Beautiful photography, widescreen photography. The first 10 minutes of it, filled with sort of. It begins like no movie I've ever seen. It has a 10-minute opening sequence set to Tristan and Isolde by Richard Wagner, and it's just a series of very slow motion tableaus that sort of tell you the exact story that you're going to see in a 10-minute time frame, and then you see the actual movie, and you kind of look back on that first 10 minutes and go, oh, wow, that's what that was, and it's just a totally fascinating movie. And as a person who suffers from depression, I find it to be the best movie about depression that's ever been made. Just absolutely bar none. Very difficult subject matter to convey to the big screen, but this one does it so inventively. It also is in a year filled with movies that are about the end of the world, including things like Contagion and Another Earth and Take Shelter and so forth. This is absolutely the best one. I mean, it just stuns you, floors you completely. Melancholy,
okay.
Definitely.
I have a feeling we'll probably hear this again before the show ends. But, I mean, I've given my thoughts on it, and it's not a movie that I can dismiss easily, of course. But I'm going to have a conversation with a critic, actually Tuesday, and we're going to air it sometime this month, where we're going to go back and forth on Melancholia. He loves Melancholia and hates Tree of Life. So we're going to throw down on both of those.
That's kind of interesting because I think Melancholia and Tree of Life would be an interesting double bill.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think they complement one another.
Yeah, they do.
And I do think they have different worldviews, which makes it interesting. But I can't dismiss Melancholia. I mean, it not so much that it stayed with me, but the idea that maybe I'm not reading it properly has stayed with me. So it's a movie that I'm going to have to grapple with.
Also, by the way, my favorite female performance of the year by Kirsten.
She is phenomenal, and whatever you think of the movie, that's a great female performance, and it's a shame that it's not more part of the conversation when it comes to Oscars. Okay, so your number 3, Dean, is Melancholia. Jerry, your number 3 is Drive. My number 3 is The Descendants, and it's actually the first movie I saw this year in 2012. And it's a good thing I was sitting away from everyone else in the theater because this movie made me sob from beginning to end, and it was moving in a way that I didn't expect it to be. But what's so great about it is that particular Alexander Payne panache he has with mixing the comedic with the dramatic, and it feels effortless to me. And he kind of embraces the ordinariness and the absurdity in equal measure, I think. And it's a beautiful George Clooney performance. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really about, as I wrote in my review of it, it's about a guy that, he inherited all this Hawaiian real estate. And one of the subplots is he's trying to sell it, and the trustees want him to sell it. And it's about how he's inherited that land inadvertently, no action of his own to actually gain that inheritance. It's passed over by previous generations. He's also inherited his children, who he's avoided most of his life, and a failed marriage that he closed his eyes to. And it's about how he goes from inheriting all those things to truly owning them, because he's never owned any of it in his life.
This is a great summary of it. That's awesome.
And I thought it was a beautiful, and one of the best closers too. Just a single shot of the family together on the couch.
That is
watching
simple,
the March of the Penguins.
Yes, very simple summation. I was extremely moved by it. It is my favorite Alexander Payne movie. I'm not saying it's his best, but it's the one that I personally connected to more than any other. So that's my number 3. Okay.
I wanted to say something about The Descendants real quick. I really love the movie. I wish that it were funnier. That's my one, because I go to Alexander Payne's movies expecting them to be funny while being also sort of bitter in some ways, or bittersweet. And I didn't feel that the movie was very amusing in a lot of ways. That said, it's also it's a very novelistic kind of movie. It's very strong on all points. I don't know why it hasn't made my top 25 except what I just said. But I originally had it in my list of most overrated movies, but I took it off of that because I don't think it deserves that. I think it's a good, strong movie, no question about it. So.
All right, so we're down to our last two. We're going to try to wrap up by 10 or 15 minutes after the hour. Number 2, you ready, guys?
Number 2.
All right, Dino, what's your number 2?
My second favorite movie of the year is a movie that I saw in 2010 at the New York Film Festival, but it only got released in theaters in 2011 at the earliest part of 2011, probably in January. I think it was nominated for the Oscar last year for Best Foreign Film. It's from Taiwan. It's by Apichatpong Weerasethakul, and it's called Uncle Boonmee Who Can Recall His Past Lives. It's a movie that's not necessarily for everybody. I would find it maybe a more challenging movie in some ways than some other movies that had come out this year. But it achieves something. Well, first of all, it's about a family coming from an urban setting in Taiwan to the countryside, where they go to spend time with their Uncle Boonmee, who is dying of kidney failure. And in the process, they're visited by ghosts of the past, literally visited by ghosts of the past. It's I think that's a good way to summarize an unsummarizable movie. And I do think that there's parts of the movie that are escaping me because I'm not in tune with Taiwanese or Thailand culture. But it doesn't matter because Uncle Boonmee, to recall his past lives, actually does something that I've never seen any other movie do, and it literally, it feels like it literally ties you down and forces you to get into a meditative state, and that's possibly because of its very sort of captivating soundtrack, which is filled with a lot of sort of ambient buzzes and hums, and it actually puts your mind into this beta state that's quite unusual. You've never felt anything like it. Again, not a movie for everybody, but it definitely was for me.
It's telling that I've seen that on Best of the Year list and Worst of the Year list. So any movie that divisive is certainly worthy of investigation.
Yeah. And it won at Cannes Film Festival and so forth. It won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival in 2010. It's definitely a movie I think people should search out, especially if you're adventurous. But that's my number 2.
Jerry, what is your
number 2?
Okay, mine is I've never talked about this movie on the show. I saw this, I think, in April or May. It's a French-Canadian film called, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but it's called Incendies.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, I was very tempted to make this my number 1. I had no idea what this movie really was before I walked into it. I'll read to you that someone wrote a good description of it. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'll get into it. A mother's last wish is to send her twins, Jean and Simone, on a journey to the Middle East in search of their tangled roots. And it's adapted from a very acclaimed play. It tells a powerful, moving tale of 2 young adults' voyage to the core of deep-rooted hatred, never-ending wars, and enduring love. Maybe the best film about trying to understand what's going on in the Middle East, specifically Lebanon. But this film just takes twists and turns you just can't imagine. When this mother dies, she wants her children to find out who they are, who their father is. And when you do find that out, it's gut-wrenchingly powerful and sick and twisted in some ways. But it also is just, you talk about horror, this is horror. This is real horror. But it's also just so compelling. You're just sucked in because you want to know. You're just so curious as what did she want them to find out, and it's phenomenal.
This was the best foreign language winner last year.
I don't.
Was
it was.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, it was. I know it was Oscar nominated. It was. But did it win Best Picture?
Yeah.
Or I thought something else won.
I don't know. I'm going to look it up right now.
Because I know it's Oscar nominated, but
wasn't this the movie that had some points of controversy because of animal abuse or something, or is that another one I'm thinking of?
It's nominated. Let me see. It's nominated. Atlantic One. I know. It might. It was nominated.
Does it have animal
it's
abuse
nominated, but no, there's no animal. I mean, not. I mean, there
okay.
are. I mean, dude, there's lots of fucking. There's the whole carnages, but it is. It was nominated for Best Foreign Language. I don't know if it won. What won last year?
Oh, In a Better World won.
Yeah, In a Better World. Which I saw. And In a Better World is just bloody awful. That's what won. And that was just this typical. You talk about the Academy making mistakes and everything with the foreign and documentary. But no, this is. I didn't even realize this was nominated. But it was just incredible. Just very, very powerful.
Incendies is your number 2.
Yeah.
Dean, what is your number 2?
Oh, I've already done my number 2.
Could you tell us again? Uncle Boonby,
Not literally.
who can recall his past lives. Okay.
Yes.
See, I too believe in reincarnation, like the film, so I was coming back to ask you once again to repeat it. My number 2 is we need to talk about Kevin. There's no need to really talk about Kevin anymore very much on the show, but it's an astounding movie, and I'm anxious to hear what people think of it once it gets out there and it's for more people to see. It staggered me. It was an unexpected surprise and a very creepy, indefinable relationship between mother and child in that movie. Mm-hmm. And Dean's right. It is about the fear of parenting. And what if you don't connect to your child? But at the same time, you can't avoid it. You are linked to them. Your child is a product of you, one way or another. And he goes on a school killing rampage with a bow and arrow. So the movie does not shy from what you'd normally see in a horror film, quote unquote. But it does it in like a very odd, almost detached. The movie has a very detached feel to it because the lead characters are detached from one another, and yet you're sucked in. I'll be watching this movie several times in the future and trying to unlock how it does what it does. But it's a very special movie. And another movie you'll see some people say is overrated, I'm sure, when more are able to see it. But that's my number 2. Which brings us to our top choice, our personal favorites for the year 2011. That means we're up to
number 1.
All right. Thank you,
Bam.
Football Wizard. All right. Dean, what is your favorite film of the year?
Well, I'm in agreement with a lot of people in saying, and including Aaron, in saying that Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life is a movie that is going to be required for study in years to come. It's in a year filled with a lot of movies that do something completely different that we wouldn't ever expect. And even with all of the lead up to the Tree of Life actually getting released, people wondering what it's going to do and everything like that. The movie doesn't disappoint. The first time I watched the movie, I was kind of split about it, because it was just so much to take in all at once. This is a movie about the universe and our place in it. And that's a lot to take in on the first go-around, especially when you don't know what to expect from it. But then watching it the second time, you see a lot of connections that are made from the various scenes. This is a meticulously edited movie, by the way. You can get a lot of the details in the second, and probably subsequent viewings would reveal even more treasures that it has to offer. But there's just no other movie to compare this to other than 2001, which I compare it only because 2001, like Tree of Life, was a pretty much resolutely experimental film that actually made it into thousands of theaters. Tree of Life didn't make it into thousands of theaters, unfortunately, but it is like the most experimental film that's been released since 2001 on a wide basis, and it has great performances by Brad Pitt again, and Jessica Chastain and Hunter McCracken as the Sean Penn character as a child. Unbelievable special effects that are surprising always. Emmanuel Lubezki's photography, the sort of lattice of classical music and music composed for the film by Alexander Desplat, all of that just mixing together. A great period piece that doesn't rely on the tropes of other period pieces, old music or, shots of people watching television or things like that. It gives you a sense of the time and place without having to rely on the media of the time and the place. And it's just it's an amazing movie. It's an experience. And it's not just simply a movie, and that's why it's number one on my list.
It is number one on my list, too, to the surprise of no one that listens regularly to the show. I admire it for its ambition. I admire it because it's a film that seems to want to change the way we think about things, or at least make us think about things. The things that truly matter. What does our life mean? What is our place in the universe? How defined are we by our origins, both mother and father, and our origins of how our species actually began to begin with? These are like massive themes. I love the balls of trying to do a movie about this, and I think he's largely successful because the movie is such a sensory experience. But the photography and the sound design and the editing and the jagged time structure, it really makes you try to go back and pick up these images that are kind of fleeting before your eyes and make sense of them, the same way that Sean Penn is doing all the way through the movie. It's a gorgeous movie. I think it's one of the great achievements in film, and a great achievement that it got the release it did. This kind of movie, it's reason to celebrate enough this year.
Yes,
that it got out there. All right, Jerry, your number one.
Melancholia.
All right.
Wow.
I can't really add much more than Dean, although. Yeah, it is an accurate atlas of depression, and you couldn't. And it's very interesting because Penelope Cruz was the original choice, not Kirsten Dunst. And I think Kirsten Dunst, having suffered from depression over the last couple of years, is a much better choice. Not that I think Penelope Cruz would have been fine, but I think just knowing that about Dunst, she brings something to that. She's so happy in the beginning of the movie when they're in the limo. They are so unbelievably happy. She's so happy. It's like just a very radiant performance throughout the film. Probably her. I mean, she's made a lot of great performances, but this is probably her most, I think, defining performance in some Virgin Suicides. But it's also like a movie. If you hate Lars von Trier, this is the movie for you, because this is made for people who hate his films, who aren't. Because I mean, I think this redeems like Dogville and Manderley, big time. I think Antichrist I couldn't get into. I think Dancer in the Dark and Breaking the Waves are his masterpieces. But I'd have to say this is by and far and away this is what he's going to be remembered for. And I don't know if I find it. I actually think I don't think I've ever seen a movie about the end of the world that, in a way, is so, in a weird way, so cheerful.
I know.
At times, it's very cheerful.
That is so true about it.
It's very. I mean, she has accepted this, or she doesn't care, but she just. I mean, and you're right. The overture at the beginning. I mean, there's just some incredible images in that when she starts shooting the sparks out of her fingers and whatever. Yeah, I was like, this is great. I don't know where she's running across the field in her wedding dress. I mean, there's a lot of beautiful shots. I mean, I think it may be. I mean, it's either between this or Tree of Life is the most beautiful film of the year. But it's. I mean, I think in both films. I mean, Tree of Life is saying, where do we fit in the universe? If at any, do we matter? And I think obviously in Melancholia, I think he's saying, no, we really don't. And I think it's very interesting. He's decided to use the 1%. As telling the story about this. The most self-absorbed people that you will meet this year. In the last year it was Tiny Furniture, but these are by far the most self-absorbed family that you will meet. And we're watching the end of the world through their eyes, and it's fascinating. It's just a fascinating film to watch unfold. And only he could do it because he's such a mess. And he is kind of a prankster. But I mean, also the best use of Wagner, I think, since Excalibur. Maybe I actually
or even the New World, which opened with Wagner. Yeah.
No, the New World. See, the New World. That's another film that's got. I mean, I think Tree of Life might have a wider, longer shelf life. But the New World is also just an incredibly awesome Malick film too.
Yeah.